Hi, everybody. I'm Adrian J. Villip. We're from Audio Excellence in Canada, and we're going to be talking about tubes or solid state. Our first encounters, what we like about either technology, and how we would use it or recommend it. So, start with me. My first encounter with tubes was back in the mid 80s when I first walked into high-end audio owned by Arthur Salvatore. Some of you will know his website. You can Google it, Arthur Salvatore. And he, at the time, was carrying the Counterpoint as well as the Quicksilver. I fell in love with both. The Quicksilver was full tube. Counterpoint, I believe, was a hybrid. And I could only afford the Counterpoint at the time, so I bought the SA12 power amplifier. The preamp was the Audible Illusions Modulus 2B tube preamplifier, and I lived with that system for about a year. What I like about tubes, and of course let's just fast forward today, over the years I've owned all kinds of tube amplifiers, from making and building my own kits with Dynacos and modifying those, to owning Jadi, trading them, buying them, selling them, audio research, and so on. And of course now we carry Macintosh. I'm going to generalize it. So in general, tubes do have a warmer sound. The high frequencies are, especially the newer ones, very open and airy, but rarely are they edgy unless you push them really, really hard and they start distorting. Bass is generally not their biggest strength. For the most part, a little bit slower. In cases of tube amplifiers where the designs are not maybe that advanced, they'll also be a bit muddy and uncontrolled. But having said that, the synths are generally nothing that causes you to want to turn the system off. It's sins of, what they call it, emission rather than commission. So you know that it could be faster, you know it could be more transparent, you know that maybe you could hear more detail, but for the most part, if the recordings are bad, for example, you could still enjoy the recordings. And I think that's why so many of us do like tubes. So let's go with Villip. What do you think of tubes?
Had a very interesting experience just the other day. Client came in and we were playing the new Macintosh C70 tube preamp, which is really nice. And I had the 1.25 kWs hooked up, and he's listening. He goes, "That's very good, but can I listen to the new MC2152?" So I changed it, and so full-blown tube outfit. And to me, it was a little bit soft because I'm a little bit spoiled here, and I know all sorts of differences now. But to him, it was music. I didn't prompt him at all, and he said it was music. So here's what I know about tubes, and this is why I'm a tubeaholic, why I have there's an assortment of low-powered tube amps, which I consider to be the best ones you can buy or get or use. Tubes naturally produce harmonics that are pleasant. It's just a function of the way they work. So if you look up, you have the fundamental frequency. Tubes will naturally produce even order harmonics, second and fourth order, and we always like that. When we hear those, other frequencies, we like those frequencies. It's basically noise, but it's pleasant. Whereas transistors naturally produce odd order harmonics, which are first and third. Now, there's always room for things like that, but to our ears, they're not as pleasant. And so that's why we will always prefer tubes, even though it's not something that is maybe more accurate, like you were saying, but it just seems more right. And, there's lots of so-called reasons for it. The biggest one is obviously is that tubes deal with much more voltage, And the scale of the tube itself, even the small tube, is bigger than what transistors will do. Transistors work at a quantum level. They don't have that scale that we can call human. And I think tubes intrinsically have a scale that is human size. And that's why I think we
He's just gone Star
like
Trek
it.
on me.
No.
Jay, what do you think?
Well, not so fan Philip with all his tubes, because he seems to be like, tubes is the way to go right now, right? But I think tubes not, be and end all. Transistors always have a place, and it's, here's the thing, like Philip said, it distorts in a way that's more pleasant, tube amplifiers. And they are able to produce a mid-range that is just very pleasant. Even in all recordings, it will sound bearable. Because it distorts in a way that a transistor amp, won't. It gives you a kind of a harmonic, euphoric experience. And I think that's very valuable, but like you've mentioned, the bass region is not all that, great. So for someone who's looking for, let's say, modern music or EDM, or, someone like a punk like me who listens to a lot of rock, tube amplifier may not be the, end result. And you may be seeking something with a little bit more punch, a little bit more bass response, like Parasound or Hegel, or something that's more powerful. And like you said, tube amplifiers are voltage based rather than current based. So for stuff like Magnepans, I've had very small success. Now other people may have disagreed, but I have had very small success in running something like the Magnepans. So it really depends on what speaker you have, and do you have efficient speakers like Tectons or JBLs or horn-loaded speakers, and is your tube amplifier able to drive them to a sufficient level? If you have a hard-to-drive speaker, then obviously tube amplifier 25 watts per channel is not going to do the job in a 25 by 12 room. So it really comes down to application, and I think tube amplifiers can be beneficial in many regards, depending on your room size, your speakers you're using, and what kind of sound you want.
Right. So just to sort of pull it all together, it's definitely very much dependent on what you like. We're not here to tell you what you should buy. We're talking about our own personal likes and dislikes. If you looked at my Ruin playlist, it's a mix of all kinds of really weird stuff. And even I, most of the time, look at it and go, where did I put that in? How did I find that particular cut? And for that kind of variety, I do prefer solid state amps. Now, one of the little tricks that you may have come across is some people will use a tube preamplifier with a solid state amplifier. And that gives you the ability for the amplifier to drive the speakers and control it well, because now you have the current to control the speakers and play loud. And you have the tubes in the front as a preamplifier that gives you the tube flavor, if you will. The other benefit of doing something like that is that the cost of replacing tubes in the preamp is typically much less than the cost of replacing tubes in a big power amplifier, where the output tubes can be a lot of money, whereas the little signal input tubes are much less. And of course, typically the little tubes last a long time, whereas the output tubes may need to be changed depending on how often you use your amplifier, every year, 2 years, or 3 or 5 years, again, depending on how often you use it. So that's another way that you can use tubes. If you haven't ever heard tubes, definitely check it out. You may find, like Philip's client did, that's absolutely music for you. And then again, if you're a punk rocker like this guy over here, you may think, I don't get it. What are these guys talking about? Look how long his hair is. Yeah, what are they talking about? This sucks. There's no bass, there's no dynamics, there's no, So definitely check it out for yourself and see what you think. If you have any questions, any feedback about this topic, send us a comment, email us. And again, subscribe and turn on the notifications so you'll know when we upload new videos. Thanks very much.